Did you know that the estate of Lammershoek in the Swartland is the place where the now world famous Eben Sadi first began making wines under his own label in the late 1990s? At the time, the then unknown Eben Sadi was a winemaker at Charles Back's estate of the Spice Route in Paarl. He began making a few of his own humble bottlings as a side hustle, and he did this on Lammershoek estate. Eventually Sadi would go on to buy a portion of Lammershoek and plant his own vineyards, and so it was that as he put down roots in that land, so the seeds of the Swartland revolution began to sprout. Some would go so far as to say that this little patch of land in the Paardeberg ward of the Swartland was the absolute epicenter of the Swartland wine rebirth. It might be a little dramatic, but I'm going to say it anyway. Lammershoek could be the wine equivalent of Paris's Café de Foy in the 18th century, or perhaps of Café Prokop during the Enlightenment. Along the way, Lammershoek has been home to more than just a few revolutionary winemakers. Aside from Eben Sadi, there was also Albert Arendts, Tester Longus Craighogen, Jurgen Gous, who has the label of Intelligo wine, and most recently, the city on a hill winemaker Andre Brains, who as of 2023 has become the estate's current farm manager. Now, the reason that we're talking about Lammershoek is because today's hand drink solo wine of the day is the Lammershoek Mystery White Blend 2019, made by winemaker Yuri Duplessis. Lammershoek as an estate has changed winemakers and owners so often over the last 25 years that it's become really difficult to figure out exactly what sort of wine legacy it wants to leave. In fact, even winemaker Yuri Duplessis has since moved on from Lammershoek in order to launch his own label of wines, Stale Pot Wines. But in the absence of any consistent track record of a winemaking style for you to assess, one can begin to look at the neighborhood in which the estate is planted in order to see the potential of the terroir. If we look at the map, we can see dotted all around Lammershoek are producers like Arie Badenhorst, there's Babylon's Peak, there's Whiteman and Sons estate of Moorlich, and then there's Jasper Wicken's estate of Waterval, which in itself provides fruit from some pretty amazing winemakers like Tremaine Smith of Blacksmith Wines and Samantha Suddens from Vine Venom. The Mysteries White Blend is a fascinating mix of Chardonnay, Viognier and Chenin Blanc, which is hardly something that a purist would define as a classic Swartland white blend. Then again, perhaps it's only right that an estate with such a revolutionary past like Lammershoek would do something as wild as shake the status quo by toying with a cultivar like Chardonnay in the middle of the Swartland. Then again, the recipe is not totally crazy because the wine is actually fronted by 60% Chenin, but the parcels, roughly equal parts of Chardonnay and Viognier, are certainly not insignificant at about 20% each. Now, when we get into the glass and give this guy a sniff, well, the nose is actually delightfully fresh, which is a little surprising given that the wine is already 4 years from harvest. And also the fact that Viognier, especially when grown in a warmer climate, can present as very overbearing and blousy and sweet. But this nose is rather delicate. It's got lovely elements. It's got the floral elements that Viognier brings, a bit of honeysuckle. It's even got some raw almond nuts, which I also associate with Viognier. But then there's lovely gravel dust and the fruit, pear fruit, followed by a little bit of peach as well. Now, when we give this a sip, well, on the palate, it's actually a lovely juicy citrus element that pops up first for me. But then the lighter, fresher pear fruit follows afterwards, and eventually the sweeter, riper peach elements catch up. There's a lovely chewy texture to the palate, which keeps things interesting. And then as that sweeter stone fruit element starts to fade, your citrus note sort of re-emerges, which keeps your mouth watering in preparation for that next sip. It really is a lovely, dynamic and engaging little white blend. Okay, so that's all we have time for today, but if you have any more questions about Lammershoek and the future of the estate, then drop them into the site and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And if you enjoyed the video, then support us on Patreon so that we can make more of these sorts of videos, and subscribe to the Hand Drink Solo YouTube channel where we publish at least 6 videos each month that talk about things like wine science, wine history, unusual cultivars, revolutionary estates, and some of the rising winemaking stars that are coming out of the dynamic South African wineland.